You didn't learn this yesterday. You learned it early, before you had words for it. You learned that watching closely was safer than speaking, that noticing moods mattered, that small shifts in tone could change everything. You learned to read rooms before you learned to relax in them. You learned to sense tension before anyone admitted it existed. You learned that being prepared felt like love. And even now, late at night, you still feel it in your body. That quiet alertness, that mental scanning, that need to replay what already happened just in case you missed something important. You don't do it because you want to. You do it because somewhere deep inside, your mind still believes this is how you stay safe. Think about how early you learned to explain yourself, not because you were asked to, but because being misunderstood felt dangerous. So you added details, you clarified tone, you softened sentences before anyone reacted. You learned to anticipate reactions before they arrived. You didn't wait for conflict. You rehearsed for it, quietly, in your head. As a child, you might have felt responsible for emotions that weren't yours to carry. Someone else's bad day, someone else's silence, someone else's disappointment. You learned that peace was fragile, that it could break if you said the wrong thing, or if you said nothing at all. So your mind stayed busy, always checking, always adjusting. Even now, when you lie in bed, your thoughts don't drift. They circle. You replay moments that felt small to everyone else. A look, a pause, a word said slightly differently than expected. Your mind asks quiet questions. Did I do something wrong? Did I say too much? Did I say too little? And what's strange is that you can trace this back to times when you were very young and very observant, times when you noticed that being good meant being careful, that being loved meant being easy to handle. You learned to be emotionally fluent before you learned to be emotionally free. There were moments when you felt unseen, but deeply watched. Moments where attention came with pressure. So you adapted, you became thoughtful, you became aware. You learned to think things through because impulsiveness felt risky. You learned that consequences could arrive suddenly, without warning, without explanation. So you started predicting outcomes, imagining futures, preparing responses. Your mind became a place where conversations happened long before they occurred. And sometimes never occurred at all. You still carry that habit, that internal rehearsal, that quiet tension before speaking, even with people who feel safe, even in moments meant to be simple. Because somewhere inside, your mind still remembers a time when being unprepared had a cost. As a child, you might have felt like you needed to earn calm, like peace arrived only after you proved you were considerate enough, careful enough, quiet enough. So now, when things feel uncertain, your thoughts speed up. They try to control what can't be controlled. They try to resolve what hasn't even happened yet. At night, this becomes louder. The world goes quiet, but your inner world stays awake. You replay conversations, not because you enjoy it, but because part of you is still searching for reassurance, that you didn't mess something up, that you're still okay, that you're still accepted. You imagine alternative endings, better responses, smoother words, not to change the past, but to soothe something unresolved inside you. There's a deep tiredness that comes with this. Not physical, emotional. It's the exhaustion of always being mentally present, always emotionally aware. You weren't taught how to rest from thinking. You were taught how to be alert. And now, still, your mind doesn't fully shut off. It just lowers its voice. You may notice that silence feels heavy to you, not peaceful, unfinished. Because silence once meant something. Distance, disapproval, uncertainty. So now, when someone goes quiet, your thoughts fill the gap. You search for meaning. You search for mistakes. You don't assume neutrality. You assume responsibility. And that habit didn't come from nowhere. It came from learning early that emotional weather could change quickly. That moods mattered. So you became sensitive, attuned, mentally flexible. Those traits helped you survive, but they also taught your mind that safety is something you have to maintain. So even now, when nothing is wrong, your thoughts check anyway. Just in case, you might remember moments where you felt older than your age, more serious, more inward, times when you observed instead of joined, listened instead of spoke. Your inner world grew rich, complex, and that world still lives inside you. It's why your thoughts feel deep, layered, endless. And why shutting them off feels impossible. You don't think too much because you're broken. You think deeply because you learned early that thinking was protection, that awareness mattered. That noticing kept things from falling apart. And even now, your mind still believes it's doing something important, holding things together, watching the edges. You're not weak for this, but you are tired. And you may not even realize how long you've been carrying it. Sometimes you wonder what it would feel like to just exist without analyzing, to speak without rehearsing, to rest without reviewing. But that feels unfamiliar because your nervous system remembers a time when familiarity mattered more than ease. You adapted beautifully, quietly, and the cost of that adaptation shows up now in late night thoughts and endless mental loops. You're not stuck. You're patterned. And patterns come from somewhere. They come from moments where you learned how to be, not because anyone explained it to you, but because your body noticed what worked and what kept you safe. Pause for a moment. Feel how much of this still lives in you. Not as memory, but as instinct, as habit, as a way of being. And notice how gentle your awareness is right now. You're not fixing anything. You're just seeing it. And sometimes that alone is enough to loosen the grip. Just a little, just enough to breathe. There's another pattern you might recognize, one that feels quieter, but heavier. It's the feeling that you had to grow inward instead of outward, that your inner world became your refuge, your rehearsal space, your safe room. As a child, you may have learned that expressing feelings openly didn't always lead to understanding. So you process them privately, in your head, in your imagination. You learned to sort emotions alone. You learned to make sense of things internally because external reassurance was inconsistent. And now, your mind still does this automatically. You don't reach outward first. You turn inward. You analyze, you interpret, you replay. You imagine conversations that never happened because your mind is still practicing being heard, still practicing clarity. At night, this becomes vivid. You picture scenes, dialogues, explanations, not because you want to confront anyone, but because a part of you still wants to feel understood, even if only in imagination. You may notice that you explain yourself even when no one asks, that you soften statements before they leave your mouth, that you anticipate confusion before it exists. This isn't insecurity. It's memory. It's your mind remembering a time when being clear felt necessary to avoid pain. You learned that ambiguity was risky, that misunderstandings lingered. So now, clarity feels like safety, even when it exhausts you. You might also notice how much you think about the future, not in big dreams, but in small outcomes. What if this goes wrong? What if I regret this? What if they think something else? Your mind scans timelines. Not to control them, but to prepare. Because you learned early that surprises weren't always kind. So you plan emotionally, mentally. You pre-feel disappointment, pre-feel rejection, as if feeling it early might soften the impact later. This creates a strange loop. You live moments twice, once in anticipation, once in reality, and then again afterward. No wonder you feel tired. There's a subtle grief in this pattern, a grief for how much effort it takes just to exist calmly. You might not even realize how much energy goes into your thinking. It's background noise, constant. And yet, there's also a deep intelligence in it. You notice things others miss. You sense emotional shifts. You understand nuance. But you pay for that understanding with restlessness, with nights that don't fully quiet. Sometimes you wish your mind would stop narrating, stop analyzing tone, stop revisiting moments. But that narrator once helped you survive, so it doesn't know how to leave. There's another childhood echo here. The feeling that being emotionally aware was your role, that you were the observer, the one who noticed. And now, you still observe yourself. You watch your own reactions, judge your own responses, as if someone is always watching, even when you're alone. This self-monitoring becomes exhausting. It creates a sense that you're never fully off stage, that you're always performing, even in your own mind. And yet, right now, listening to this, there's no performance required, no reaction expected, just presence. You don't have to resolve anything tonight. You don't have to trace every pattern to its origin. It's enough to recognize that these habits came from somewhere, from a younger version of you who did the best they could with what they had. Someone who learned to think deeply because thinking helped. And maybe now, for the first time in a while, you can let that part of you rest just a little. Not because it's wrong, but because it's tired. Notice the quiet in this moment. The kind that doesn't demand answers. Just awareness. Just softness. You're allowed to be here without analyzing how you got here. You're allowed to exist without explaining yourself. And maybe that realization doesn't solve anything, but it loosens something. And sometimes that's all you need to finally exhale.